Welcome to this episode of GenAI Live. My name is Brian Terry, and I'm a senior solution architect or partner solution architect here at AWS. And if this is your first time joining us, welcome. So this is the place where you can see where AWS and AWS GenAI partners are reshaping what's possible. And I'm joined here with my co-host Parajad. Parajad, how are you today?
I'm doing absolutely perfectly well. Thank you, Brian, for having me today. And hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Welcome you all to do on this today's episode of Genia Live. I'm Parijat. I'm your co-host, and I'm a senior partner solution architect at AWS. And we love doing. I love doing building and GenAI and building things using GenAI.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just changing overnight. I mean, it's the future of Gen AI is just growing exponentially, and there are even some new things that have been released for AWS. So, can you talk a little bit about what you've seen?
Oh, yes. Yeah. So, yesterday we introduced another model of in Nova family of LLMs that Amazon has. So it's called Amazon Nova Sonic. It's a
Mhm.
state-of-the-art speech-to-speech model that delivers real-time human-like voice conversations with industry-leading price, performance, and low latency. And it's available in Amazon Bedrock via the bidirectional streaming API, and the model understanding streaming speech in various speaking styles and generates expressive speech responses that dynamically adapts to the patterns of input speech. And another update, it's again from the Nova, so Nova Reel. So we have a feature update here. It's called Nova Reel 1.1, and it provides quality and latency improvements in 6 seconds single shot video generation compared to Amazon Nova Reel 1.0. And this update lets you generate multi-shot videos up to 2 minutes in length and with consistent styles across shots. And then we have some again feature updates for on Amazon Bedrock Guardrail for GenAI application safety, and this includes things like multimodal toxicity detection with industry-leading image and text protection. Now, this was announced in reInvent 2024, and now it is GA along with other features like enhanced privacy protection for our PII detection in user inputs, policy analysis before deployment for optimal configuration. So these are some of the updates that I've got. What have you, Brian?
Oh man, that's super exciting. I love to see the updates that come to Nova. Specifically around that, we just released a blog that talks about prompt migration from OpenAI to Amazon Bedrock or Nova on Bedrock. So, if you put those two together, I imagine, partners and customers can really create some powerful AI driven applications.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that leads right into that probably this is time to bring in a guest and talk something similar about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, let's bring in Evan. Evan, how about you introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's very nice to meet everyone. I am not a senior architect at Amazon, despite the hat, right? But I am our VP of delivery for our North Americans platforms practice here at AllCloud. So I actually have two completely different teams underneath me, one of which focuses exclusively on AWS infrastructure, and the other one is data and AI within the AWS platform as well. So we are an all-in AWS partner that is looking to, kind of bring a different approach to the way that we approach, and I should realize I said that twice, data and AI problems by having that bifurcation of the deep data expertise paired with deep infrastructure expertise so that we can deploy those data solutions in a very secure fashion. And yeah, I was hoping to chat with you guys about, migrations from OpenAI to Bedrock as well. So this is perfect timing with the release.
Super exciting. I mean, I'm a big fan of your company, and what you guys are doing are phenomenal for other AWS customers. I mean, can you talk a little bit about kind of the work you do for those customers and how you approach that?
Yeah. So we kind of came into the Gen AI space, right? But making it kind of a core focus of the practice before Bedrock was even released. And one of the things that we kind of differentiate ourselves with is working backwards from what the customer needs for a business reason and then applying technology to it. So versus coming to them and saying, hey, here's all the great things that we can do with generative AI, we say, what are the core challenges that you're actually trying to solve as an organization? We take a look at that, we break it down into its core components, and then come back with recommendations for what would be the best tech stack to really move the needle on those strategic objectives. So if that's Gen AI related, right, we end up focusing primarily on introducing either additional context to a model's data through things like RAG, or we've been focusing a lot on agentic workloads. While we are happy to advise on, we don't spend our time as much on the things just like, hey, give me a summarization of this, right? It's what is the purpose of that, right? What business value is that going to drive? And then helping to automate the deployment of those workloads as well so that it can go, with a true CI/CD process from development the whole way through to production and get injected into the process early and start bringing value uh, to an operational process through things like agentic workloads.
Wow, sounds exciting.
Yeah.
It has been. We've done some really cool use cases, and we've even got some that it's great when they're public because then you can talk about them, right? But some really cool ones that we can even talk about today related to OpenAI migrations. That we've done everything from bringing people from OpenAI over to Bedrock to agentic workloads within different service industries to file requests, the whole way through to internal chatbots to reduce the headcount that's needed to support servicing end customers by bringing information to the fingertips of the agents quicker, and kind of anything in between.
So I'm curious on that. You talked specifically about doing the migration from OpenAI to Bedrock. Why
Yep.
do you why do customers approach you for doing that? Like, what's the main attraction in doing that conversion for some of these customers?
Yeah, I would say that it really comes down to kind of four different core reasons. One or more of which could be applicable for any customer really looking to make that change, or for ones that maybe don't even know yet that they're kind of looking at it. But then there's the ancillary benefits that come along with it. So at its high level, the first one is there's changes that occur on the OpenAI platform in terms of policy, pricing, availability. Right, there's updates that come out that lead to disruptions in service, and if you're looking to really operationalize something, that can be pretty disruptive. One of the things I often tell customers is, right, you can go to any of the publicly available Gen AI platforms, whatever it may be, and you can probably get to about an 80% of what you're looking for pretty quickly. The operationalization of that and embedding it into your application and having it be available and available when you need it in executing in a way that is hands off from a human is really kind of where 80% of that effort is. So if you have to worry about disruption in service, you then have to worry about how it's actually going to solve your challenge. Another one is data privacy and security concerns. Um, Everything from worrying about what's being done with the prompts as they're presented to the model through trying to make sure that you're staying compliant for frameworks like SOC 2 Type 2. We have multiple solutions that are in production that have actually passed SOC 2 Type 2 audits, being a part of the product. So if you look at a heavily regulated industry like finance or healthcare or whatever the case may be, right? Being able to actually provide the diagrams and show that Bedrock is walled off from the internet, and the only information that is actually provided back to the model providers is statistics on usage and nothing to do with the prompts. And being able to further secure that with VPC endpoints, right, puts us in a position from a security posture that OpenAI can't match. I would say the third one is limited customization and scalability. One of the things that we've been looking at is we kind of enter a world of either multi-agent workloads or small language models, is it may not always be the same model that solves every problem, right? Whenever your only tool in your toolbox is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. And even though there's a couple of different versions of GPT available, it's much different than being able to say, hey, I have this one part of my process that has a ton of thought logic in it. Maybe I want to look at something like a Sonnet 3.7. Or, I have another portion that is just trying to go through and get contextual awareness and provide a response. Maybe I can go with like a Nova Lite or a Nova Pro because maybe I don't need as large of a context window, or maybe I don't need as much, chain of thought style logic applied to it, whatever the case may be. And it gives you this ability now to not just be almost pigeonholed with just one model or one family of models to solve your problem, but you can go through multiple models from multiple providers. And the last is, performance bottlenecks and just the ability to really kind of get predictable performance out of the solutions. Because while Bedrock is serverless, the multiple kind of options that are available for kind of getting more predictable throughput with it, right? Whether it's, on demand or batch capacity, whether it's provision throughput, whatever the case may be, really giving you that ability to kind of not just take what you're given, but really design a solution that actually gets you what you need. And there's a ton of second order ones that come out of it that customers realize after the fact. But if I had to categorize it, those are the ones I would start with for people to really think about.
Awesome.
Right. So basically, the choice of models that you get from Bedrock, the fact that you get your security.
Mhm.
So these are some of the factors. Would you say, are something that customers get then when they build their applications using Bedrock?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, right. You get the opportunity to not only be able to secure a workload, but to provide documentation back to your auditing body that it is secured. It's completely different just from where it kind of leaves your posture. And one of the things that we've seen is security is often the impetus to look at, should I do something different? Right? There is a handful of customers that get frustrated with performance, but security is kind of usually where they start looking. But then, to the other point that you made, what they realize is I no longer have to use, GPT-4 for everything, right? I can split it across Nova. I can look at, some things from Mistral. I can grab Llama models if I need to. I can use things from Anthropic, and I can really kind of segment my workload because each of these models really do kind of have a different sweet spot for, we always talk kind of internally about what we want to be famous for. They all have something different that they're famous for, and let them shine, let them be good at what they are, and stop forcing basically every problem into one solution.
And you can also always distill the models as well, right? And get the price and performance that you're looking from the model of your choice.
Absolutely. And that ability to further customize, even with like the model repository, say that you have one that you are just dead set on working with that's not available there, that's okay. You can bring it over too, and then you still have those same features of being able to really control the performance, distill the model, really make it fit for use for your use case. You're opening yourself up to a whole new world of possibilities.
For those customers who already have workloads running on AWS, I imagine doing this migration really helps them because you have their current workload that may not even be Gen AI, but then you have it built on Bedrock. Can you talk a little bit about like how that like helps to have like Bedrock if they're like um, have the complete application or they're all in on AWS?
Yeah, that's a great call out, right? There's a lot of synergies, and it makes it a lot more it's a lot less resistance to really getting to where you need to go, right? So if we take a look at there are some customers that I've had where their deployments were entirely AWS native aside from their Gen AI deployments. And then they decided, okay, we are going to re-centralize these on AWS, right? And the reason I bring that up is it gives a great kind of real world example of exactly what you were talking about, Brian, right? So they struggled through, building these workloads outside of AWS because that's where their specialty is, right? They've got them there, they've got them running. We've had a whole bunch of other ones who have, tried to spin up prototypes on prem because they were worried about what the cost would look like, or they're managing it in a Kubernetes cluster, regardless of where it may be. So there's also been migrations where we have things that are even managed that aren't for, kind of predictable performance beyond which we could get with a Bedrock solution that then the customer is looking to simplify complexity with. So it could come from a variety of different reasons for that migration to Bedrock and AWS. But when you have the previous AWS experience, especially if you already have a landing zone in place, right? Your SCPs that govern your other workloads then apply to your GenAI workloads. Having the knowledge of what those are and how to form them gives you the foundation to expand them in ways that allow you to account for your GenAI workloads. All the practices that you've put in place for security alerting and monitoring, right, then end up having the ability to then further give you information about your GenAI workloads. And really what you're doing is, instead of building something completely new that's so just foreign from the way that you work today and then having to figure out what to do with it, you're introducing a new set of services into AWS. And if you're using AWS at scale, you're probably introducing new services pretty often, right? So you're used to the IAM rules, you're used to securing permissions, you're used to monitoring and logging and CloudWatch alarms and everything else that you need around your process to make sure that it really is well managed and following the well architected framework. And Bedrock and the GenAI workloads become something else that is just introduced into an established process versus being this new kind of almost intimidating thing that you have to start from ground zero with.
Wow. I mean, that
Right.
sounds like a perfect synergy.
Yeah. And maybe let's talk about, this is for the customers who are already running their workloads in AWS. How about, if somebody is running somewhere else using a different LLM and
Yeah.
looking to move to AWS, right? So maybe, going back to the example you talked about, like OpenAI to AWS. So what would be the migration process look like for such a customer? Maybe if you can elaborate at a very high level.
Yeah. So just kind of walking through at a high level, if they have nothing on AWS today, right? We help them establish their LZA or their landing zone so that they have an area by which they can move it to. We establish the different OUs and the accounts within those that are needed to host this, right? Our team has the ability to either help them script out the resources through, we prefer CDK, but we also do Terraform, right? We put in a deployment process so that they're going from kind of ground zero to, all right, now I have a productionalizable process on AWS. um, and this is for the workloads like we're talking about that are already in production, not ones that are being built out or haven't yet been productionalized. But then as we bring that over, right, there's a variety of different ways that we may want to evaluate the effectiveness of that migration. So there's a lot of different aspects that have to be taken into account, right? So one is, what is the latency that we're looking for within the responses? Another one is how much variability is acceptable within the response itself. So essentially, like, what if we were looking at it from like a semantic similarity perspective, right? How similar does it have to be able to say that these are the same thing? And then in addition to that, we need to look at features such as, while context windows and training data sets are becoming larger, um, most of the time what we see is customers that are looking to bring over workloads from OpenAI have very heavily fine-tuned models. So what we kind of need to take a look at is what they're doing so niche for the industry that the training data set likely does not include what they are talking about, to where we need to look at like a partial or a full fine tuning of a model. If that's the case, we need to pick models that have that capability. But what we often find is, right, either through Bedrock agents or through other frameworks, right, introducing a RAG context, we can often get the accuracy kind of to what they had on OpenAI, or in most cases surpass it. So once we have that kind of model selection and the approach of, are we going to do a fine tuning? Are we going to introduce a RAG context? What is the latency requirements, right? What is, we're always going to push for making things as secure as humanly possible, right? But making sure we understand the different compliance frameworks that they need to be able to adhere to once the solution is deployed. We then put together that migration plan of essentially taking the prompts that are in production, executing those, verifying that we are getting acceptable results. And then once we have kind of two things running in parallel, where if you give it the same information, you're getting the same output, we really treat it like a migration, like you would for any other infrastructure component, because we have it published as an endpoint. And then it really is cutting over from the old endpoint that's being called from the solution to the new endpoint that's being called for the solution.
Wow. Sounds like it's just kind of a seamless. You guys kind of make it kind of a seamless process and kind of hassle free when customers try to do these migrations.
That's the intent, right? I find that I am dating myself sometimes with the analogy. But if anyone remembers the infomercial for the Ronco rotisserie oven, where the guy just spent an hour yelling "set it and forget it" as he cooked different things in a rotisserie oven, that's kind of the idea, right? Of, you come to us with the workloads, we will walk through with your team and fully understand what needs to be done to make them function the same way or better at a higher security posture on AWS. And then we put together that strategy, present it back, go through the execution, walk them through every step of the way, kind of what's going on, the decisions that are being made, why they're being made, bring the teams up to speed on what's going on. And Brian, to your point, right, when they're already on AWS, it makes it really easy because we're just introducing them new services versus new concepts. And then at the end, hand them a solution that either they can execute on their own, or we have the ability to stay around and kind of help them maintain that solution as well and continue to improve on it.
Okay, cool. How about we take some questions from the audience? I think we have a pretty good
Sure.
one here for you. So, considering the options of generative AI and agentic automation, where do you typically see customers focus their initial efforts and investments when adopting AI solutions?
Great question, right? So, what we typically look for, if it is an initial effort, right? What we don't want to do is go into POC land from the perspective of saying, like, hey, here's this theoretical concept. I saw an agent that can deliver it, right? So that means it should work for my process as well, right? What we want to kind of set the stage with is, what is the business process you're trying to solve? And then what is the expected output? Because what we need to understand is kind of what is that interaction that you expect to take place, and then what is the output that you're expecting. Depending on what that is, really changes kind of the way that we take this. And the reason for that is, um, say that you're having a conversation, programmatically, obviously, right? That gets to an action. Where does that data come from? What is the action, right? Um, so we take a look at that and say, okay, do you need a SQL agent? Is it just, an agent that's authorized to take actions on your behalf? What is this? And what we look to get you really is something that can show value back to your internal business stakeholders so that you can make a decision with something that's built on top of your data to show you that you can achieve those outcomes that you're looking for, right? Now, we may have to pare that back on the number of them, or, kind of, we typically at that point don't get into integrating that into a solution, right? And the reason for that is those are the things that essentially take time and require a larger investment. So what we want to do is show you with your data how that agentic automation gets you the outputs that you're looking for, bring that into kind of a first phase project, demo that back to your business leaders, show them that the goal can be accomplished, and then get the investment to fully operationalize it. Because while there's a lot of ambition to go through and inject this into the process, a lot of times what we have to make sure we're all level set on is expectations about what those outputs will look like.
Yep.
Wow,
And
absolutely.
I think this goes back to the POC to production scenarios as well. Like, a lot of organizations, they end up doing a lot of POCs, but only few end up getting into the production. So totally agree that identifying the right use cases. Do you have the right input data to begin with? uh, because uh, the output will obviously depend on what's the input, right? So totally agree with all the points that you mentioned.
And that's why too we've had a, what I've been told is, disproportionately high number of our use cases go to production. Um, I think we've the number that we have had not go to production, I can actually count on probably one hand, right? Um, the big takeaway from it has been if the process that you're trying to automate truly provides business value, there should be no issue getting funding to put it into production, assuming that you can prove that it's functional.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's excellent. Excellent. I mean, I'm in awe of the work you guys are doing. I imagine you're just, just making your customers super happy with the things that you guys do. So exciting.
It's what we're striving for.
Awesome. So, we have a few more minutes left in this chat. So, can you tell the rest of the audience where they can find out more information about your company or how they can get in contact with you if they have questions about migrations?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in our out at our website, right, allcloud.io, we have all kinds of different case studies that are available from our teams across the globe, related to Gen AI, data and analytics, infrastructure, security, kind of everything in between. And then also out there, there is a kind of services tab that walks through each of our different businesses, and then there's a giant contact button there that I can personally assure everyone that if you submit anything to that, I get a follow up almost instantly from the people that are responsible for that to make sure that we get someone in contact with you to talk about your use case. So we have a team of AWS sellers across the US. We also have ones in Germany, Israel, and the other regions that our company does work in, and they are all fully equipped to handle kind of any conversations around the AWS platform, regardless of what it may be. Um, and just one of the things to call out for people, just to give kind of that certainty that we know what we're talking about. Right, last year we were the AWS Global SaaS Partner of the Year, runner up, or one of the finalists for the Security Partner of the Year globally. And then here, I think it was 2 years ago now, we're the AI Partner of the Year globally as well. So these are all things that are super well within our wheelhouse, and we love just being able to help customers on their journey.
Oh man, congratulations! I'm super excited for you. We love to see partners grow.
For sure. Yeah. And it's been a great partnership with AWS, and with all the continued features that are being rolled out for Bedrock and the other Gen AI services and the support from AWS as a whole, we are just really looking forward to what that means for our joint customers, and really how we can change the face of, IT as we know it, by bringing Gen AI enablement to these workloads and taking things to places people would have never thought possible even 2, 3 years ago.
Well, thank you, Evan. I mean, this what you talked about is super interesting and super impactful. And yeah, feel free to come back and tell us about new innovations with your company. We love to hear those things.
Love to. Yeah. Ask me back anytime, guys. This is great. Thanks so much for the opportunity, and looking forward to doing it again.
All right. Well, we're not done yet with this episode of Gen AI Live. Please stay tuned, and we have another guest coming up. So we'll be right back.